I was on a solo road trip last fall, just me and my aging Subaru, bouncing between national parks. It wasn't meant to be some spiritual thing. I just needed to get away. After a really rough breakup and even rougher year at work, I'd been driving through eastern Oregon. Miles of emptiness, no cell service, just trees and the occasional gas station with hand-painted signs. It was peaceful, until I hit this little place called Dennett Hollow. It wasn't on my GPS. I saw a faded wooden sign that read, Dennett Hollow Pop, 812. I was running low on gas and had been looking for a place to crash, so I figured, why not? I turned in around 4:30 p.m. on a cloudy Thursday. Right away, something felt off. The town was too quiet. Like movie set quiet. One gas station, a diner, and a row of homes that looked straight out of 1950. Everything looked lived in, but frozen. Like time just stopped here. At the gas station, a middle-aged guy in coveralls greeted me way too eagerly. Said his name was Hank. He pumped the gas for me, old school style, and asked where I was headed. I told him I didn't have a set destination. Well, he said, maybe that's because you're supposed to stop here. Then he smiled like he was telling me a secret, creeped me out a little, but I laughed it off. He suggested I stay at a local inn called the Lantern House, just off Main Street. Said it was quiet and the kind of place that remembers you. I should have left then. I checked in. The lady at the front desk never asked for ID or a credit card. Just handed me a key with a heavy brass tag that read Room 5. Said dinner was at 7 sharp and everyone's welcome. That night, I walked into the dining room and froze. The entire town must have been there. Dozens of people seated silently at long wooden tables. No one was talking. No music, no background chatter. Just the sound of forks on plates. A place setting had been made for me. My name, spelled correctly, was on a handwritten card. I hadn't told anyone my name. I sat. The man to my left leaned over and whispered, "They chose you. Don't drink the water." Before I could react, someone rang a bell at the front of the room, and the whole crowd stood at once, in unison, not 1 second apart. They all looked toward the kitchen. A tall woman in white robes entered, holding a silver chalice. She began speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Then she turned and stared right at me. Everyone else turned too. I bolted. Ran out the back door, into the alley, through someone's garden. I heard footsteps behind me, but I didn't stop. I made it back to my car, keys already in hand. The tires had been slashed. But I didn't care. I drove on the rims until I hit the highway. Eventually I found a state trooper on Route 395 and broke down telling him what happened. Here's the weirdest part. He nodded, like he'd heard it before. He told me never to go back and never to talk about it too much. It's one of those places, he said. They let you leave if you don't ask questions. My brother Caleb vanished in May of 2012. It wasn't dramatic. No abduction. No suicide note. Nothing like that. He just said he needed a break. He was 22, burnt out, working 2 jobs, and tired of everything. He told our mom he was going to take a few days off and drive into the countryside to clear his head. He never came back. At first we thought maybe he'd just ghosted, wanted a fresh start. But Caleb wasn't like that. He was close with me, always left messages if he was off the grid, and he had a girlfriend he loved. When a week passed without any contact, we got worried. A police report was filed. The search began. The last known use of his debit card was in a place called Ellery, Kansas, about 2 hours south of where we lived in Kansas City. I had never heard of it. Neither had anyone else. The cops followed the lead. They found the gas station where he'd stopped, and dashcam footage showed him driving through the town's main street. But after that, nothing. No hotel records, no surveillance, no trace. The town claimed he was never there. The case went cold. Years passed. People moved on. But I didn't. I became obsessed with the LLORY. It wasn't on Google Maps anymore. Number. Wikipedia page. Just whispers on old forums and a few blurry photos from 10 years back. Something about the town didn't sit right with me. It felt wrong. This May, exactly 13 years after Caleb vanished, I went there myself. It took me most of the day to even find a route that showed up on GPS. The town appeared briefly when I zoomed in hard enough, like it was hiding in the pixels. I drove for hours through empty farmland until I finally reached a faded wooden sign on a crooked post. Welcome to Ellery, Pop 482. The place looked frozen in time. Gas prices hadn't changed in years. The buildings were old, the streets too quiet, and everyone turned to stare when I parked my car. At the diner, I asked if anyone remembered a guy named Caleb who came through in 2012. The waitress smiled politely, then slowly said, "We don't get many outsiders, especially ones that stay." Then she walked away. Later, I met an old man sitting outside the post office. He introduced himself as Roy. When I mentioned Caleb, he paused, lit a cigarette. "He stayed at the Cold Stone Inn," he finally said, almost like a confession. "Room 3, but he didn't leave." The Cold Stone Inn was a crumbling building on the edge of town. Windows boarded up, door chained. But the back entrance was open. Inside, it looked like someone just left. Dust on everything, but beds made, lamps plugged in. In the front desk drawer, I found a leather-bound guest book. One entry stood out. Caleb M., May 4th, 2012. Room 3. I felt this chill down my spine. That night I stayed in my car. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Something slipping under my windshield wiper. I turned on the headlights. An envelope. Inside was a Polaroid. My brother, Caleb, older, gaunt, pale, standing in front of a nondescript building with peeling gray walls. He held up a sign that read, "I'm still here." I flipped the photo. In small writing, it said, "Don't ask questions. Leave tonight." I ran to the town's sheriff station the next morning. The officer at the desk looked at the photo, then at me. "We've warned others," he said. "This town has its own way of keeping people." He told me, without emotion, that I needed to leave, that Caleb had chosen to stay. And so should I. I didn't argue. I drove away, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, the town looked different, darker, like it had never been meant to be found. A week later, I tried to return. Same route, same GPS. ELLOR. I've gone, literally. No roads. No sign. Just overgrown fields and silence. But I still have the Polaroid. And if you zoom in on the street sign in the background, behind Caleb, you'll see it faintly. Ellery Doctor. He's still there. Somewhere. I'm not even sure why I'm writing this. Maybe just to prove to myself it happened. Or that I was there. Back in 2019, I took a Greyhound from Spokane to Eugene. It was a long trip, and I was broke, so I didn't mind the cheap seat in 12-hour ride. Somewhere around 2 a.m., the driver announced we'd be making an unscheduled stop in a place called Merritt, Oregon. No one had heard of it. Not even the guy next to me who said he grew up in Klamath Falls. We pulled into what looked like a town frozen in time. One gas station, one diner, an old train depot that looked like it hadn't seen passengers since the 70s. The bus driver said we'd be stopped for exactly 40 minutes and that we were free to stretch your legs, but don't wander too far. There were maybe 18 people on board. Most stayed inside the bus, but I got out with a couple others, thinking I'd grab coffee. It was cold and misty, and the place felt oddly muted, like everything was too quiet. The diner was open. There was one waitress, one cook, and a couple of locals sitting silently at the counter. The waitress gave us a weird look, like she recognized us but wasn't happy about it. I ordered a coffee. She said, "Just brewed, no charge." I thanked her, but I didn't drink it. Something about the way she said it gave me a bad feeling. I checked my phone. No signal, no GPS, no Wi-Fi. Not even a loading screen, just no network detected. That's when I realized I didn't see the bus anymore. I ran outside. The lot was empty. I stood in the exact spot where it had dropped us off. Nothing. No engine sound in the distance. No headlights, just fog and pine trees and that impossible silence. I wasn't the only one. 3 other people who had gotten off were also standing there, looking just as confused. One guy, tall tattooed arms, army jacket, started pacing, muttering, "No way. Those ain't right. They don't stop here." "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. I tried calling 911. No signal. Tried asking the locals if there was a landline. They just stared. Finally, one of them, an old man in a fishing hat, said, "You got off. That's the rule." I asked, "You step off in Merritt, you don't step back on." I thought it was just creepy small-town talk. A prank, maybe. But then I noticed something carved into the side of the train station. Those who leave are never mentioned. I asked the waitress what that meant. She didn't answer, but she slid me a napkin with something written on it. "It's not the town that traps you. It's the forgetting." We stayed in Merritt for 3 days. Time didn't work right. Watches stopped. The sky never fully brightened. Food appeared, but no one saw it cooked. The same old man walked past us every hour, like clockwork. We started forgetting things. One girl forgot her last name. I forgot my sister's face. The guy in the army jacket stopped talking altogether. On the 4th morning, the bus was just back, in the exact spot we'd arrived. Lights on, no driver. We climbed in without speaking. The second we passed the edge of the woods, phones lit up, GPS returned. The sun was out. We were 3 hours behind schedule, but no one else on the bus seemed to notice. The other passengers swore we'd only been stopped for 10 minutes. They didn't remember us getting off. I Googled Merritt, Oregon when I got home. No results. I called Greyhound. They said no such town was on their route. Never had been.